Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Small Business Show. My name is Swire Ho. You can also call me the promo guy. My guest today is Matt Bell from MessageUp. Matt is a content marketing expert with very in-depth industry in the industrial career. He has used, improved, invested in, and let businesses sell industrial hardware, software, and services. In 2019, he founded Strategic Piece to help brand grow through content marketing. He has written two books on the subject: Content Marketing, Mission Critical, and Content Marketing, Make the Magic Happen. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great, Swire, or promo guy. Which one would you like me to call you? You can call me marketing guy. You can be promo guy.
Yeah, I love to, you call me anything you like, promo guy
I need to
is
come up
fine.
with a hashtag for myself like that. It's good.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I think that's important for my content marketing too, because like if you Google my name, Swire Ho, hashtag the promo guy, I'm the only one that has that. So I think in a way, I want to ask you questions about. But before that, I love to learn more about your career journey. You started out, in the tech space, and how did you end up, doing content marketing for client? What do you like most about what you do now versus in the tech space?
Have we got all day? It's been one of those lovely, convoluted, serendipitous, I had no plan when I started out journeys, and I've ended up here. But I think if I reflect back on, I graduated as an engineer. I'm a chemical engineer by graduation. I joined a large energy company. I worked for them around the world in sort of technical roles, then eventually went into corporate venture capital. That led me into small business. That lit the fire for, kind of the entrepreneurial side of me. And then through various roles after that, came to realize that I think my greatest contribution is around helping companies figure out how to present themselves and grow. And that's how I've stepped into this wonderful world called marketing. I think the connecting tissue between all of that is I love to build things. It's why I played with Legos as a kid. It's why I, became an engineer. And building a business and building a brand takes thought. It takes a plan. There's sort of steps you have to go through to do that. I didn't really try to become a marketer, to be honest. My last full-time role, if you will, back in 2019, you mentioned after that, starting Strategic Piece, which is kind of the mothership for MessageUp, is a DBA, a company within the Strategic Piece brand. I wanted to, instead of leading one company, I wanted to spend more time helping multiple companies grow. And, as the CEO of a company, you're the top of the totem pole, you're like the big cheese, right? But a lot of your job is dealing with shareholders and other stakeholders and finance and HR and all these wonderful things. I mean, they're great, but it's not what I passionately love to do. And what I discovered was the piece of my job I was enjoying the most was growth strategy. And within that, how to brand and market a business. And then I kind of, over the next 2 or 3 years working with clients and companies, realized that the big issue that most of my clients were facing was this one we call content marketing. And, that led me to take a deep dive into that subject, as you mentioned, writing a couple of books along the way and adding specialist on the end of my title there for content marketing, because that's what I've chosen to focus on. It's where I think a lot of B2B companies need, can really benefit from some guidance and some structure that I can offer.
Yeah, you mentioned it, and especially I like your angle for B2B. A lot of times that when we think about storytelling, if you haven't heard the term before, you think it's influencer, right? Posting very nicely, posting product, but you actually focus on the B2B space. And from my experience, sometime when B2B company trying to market, they speak in industry jargon, right? If you got to be an engineer to decode everything to understand it. Like, is that the approach, or like how do you really tell a story? Sometimes will be a text based, so a lot of technical wording that you have to use. How can you make that into a story that people will likely want to consume?
There's a couple of things here. You're hitting on some very interesting elements of B2B. In the business to business world, you're not selling usually to one person. You're selling to a committee of people, what we would call a buying committee, right? And on that committee, that group of people that will make the decision whether to buy your product or your service, there's probably is a technical person who will respond to the jargon. And so if we're speaking to them and we're marketing just to them, then maybe it is appropriate to use the right amount of jargon to show that we know what we're talking about. If you take all the jargon away, it can somehow make you sound like you don't know what you're talking about. So a little bit careful not using it at all. But the other members of that technical committee might be a budget holder. They might be somebody financial. It could be an end user. It could be a decision maker who isn't necessarily intimately familiar with the solution. And so too much jargon is just going to go over their head. They're not going to understand your message. So it is a fine balance. And what it depends on is understanding who your audience is that you're trying to communicate with and figuring out what is it they're looking for. What are the answers that they need? A lot of the time, they already know the technical stuff. They're looking for help, better understanding the challenge that they're trying to solve, considering a different solution that they haven't looked at before. And that doesn't necessarily mean technical jargon. That can be very different. The other aspect, and we can get deeper into it, is business buying decisions, B2B buying decisions are not made based on data and logic. They're made based on emotion. 90% the research says, let's put that in front of it. But a large part of the B2B decision-making process is emotional. Is this a company that I trust? Is this a solution I feel good about? Is this alleviating a fear or a concern that I have in my business? They're helping me do better in my job. And so the content we're writing is trying to forge an emotional connection with the audience that we're writing it for. Now, does that require technical jargon? Not really. To establish some credibility, maybe. But really, it's about showing that we understand their challenge and we're there to help.
That's very interesting. And speaking as a small business professional, right, with all, assuming that small business professional is in the B2B space, it sounds like it costs a lot of money and effort. So the question that I have is, always for my classes, can a small business compete for the attention with corporate spending millions in marketing? Assuming that, in the B2B space, right, big company obviously can spend a lot of ad space. They could do conferences. They could do lunch and learn. So does a small business stand to compete with the larger competitors?
Can they? Yes. Is it easy? Definitely not. And one of the challenges we face on digital channels in particular is that, dollars do speak loudly, right? The platforms that are delivering our message for us respond to money. However, the people on the other end, the audience, tend to tune out the mass messaging, right? I mean, we look for the different, what's new. I'm looking for a solution that is something I haven't heard about before. I'm looking for maybe a startup company that's going to want to work more personally with me than these great corporations that are, I'm just a number in their spreadsheet. And so there are ways for small businesses, and I think this is true B2C as well as B2B, that small businesses to get a little bit of attention. The large companies spend millions, but they're also trying to retain a really large group of customers. They're trying to retain, they've got big dollars to deliver every month, every quarter. So they've got to spend to do that, to retain that. We're looking for a small piece of that. We're going to nibble away around the edges, at least to start with. And so the key is, how do we spend a much smaller amount of money effectively and get noticed? If we can get noticed, as soon as we can get noticed, we can start to build. The key is how, in that huge sea of noise that the big companies are creating, can we get noticed? And usually that's by having a different message from the one that they do, something that's distinctive, something that clearly targets a pain point that the buyer has that those big companies aren't taking care of. And as a smaller business, if you don't have something different, if you're not taking care of something that the incumbents, the big players, are taking care of, yeah, you're probably out of business anyway, right? There's not. You need something differentiated, and then we need to make sure, how do we communicate that to the audience so that they go, whoa, what's that? I haven't seen that before. That's interesting.
Yeah, I've actually saw Google Ads before. I think I researched for a payroll option. So their tagline for the small company, actually, if you hate Paycheck and ADP, come to us.
Yeah,
so that's the tagline. So they know maybe there's a certain pain point that those big guys are not addressing, or maybe some of us feel that when we talk to a mega corporation, we don't get the hand holding that we should. Right. So some of us out there actually wanted to work with smaller businesses where we have a really personal conversation. So maybe that's your take. Maybe that's your niche. Like Matt is saying, we don't have the marketing dollar to compete. Maybe a Super Bowl campaign. Maybe we, fly airplanes up there to do marketing. But if you find a space, go deep in your niche and then be known as the person that, for example, you mentioned about the promo guy. So if you search for Swire hashtag the promo guy, I own the first 2 pages. So these are content that I want you to see. So versus if you type on promotional product, which the industry I'm in, tens of thousands of pages. So I learned it from talking to guests on the show, right? So they suggest you should, use the same phrase every single time so people remember your tagline and your name. So, then you could point them to the way that you want them to see and go.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about establishing an emotional connection, right? Eventually, what you're trying to do is get a little bit of mind share, a little bit in their head, that the next time that they're coming for promo goods or whatever it is, the company is selling, they associate your name, your tagline with taking care of them in that area. And I love the way you just phrased it, that the big boys are maybe ignoring or not taking care of the little guy in particular. It's not necessarily true that a small B2B company cannot sell to a large B2B company, right? The customer could still be quite large, but that doesn't mean that they feel taken care of by the paychecks, although I don't want to badmouth paychecks. I don't use them, but I'm assuming they will also, like any company, have customers who aren't happy with what they do. I think what tends to happen is the bigger a supplier gets, the more they have to focus on large accounts to keep those dollars turning. And the little guy does tend to get left behind. And so they allow a new company to grow, a small competitor to take care of the little guys. And then that competitor gets bigger and they buy them. So it's this sort of regenerative cycle. It's sort of like a natural cycle in business. And I think, for a smaller B2B player, you need to be very clear about what your ideal customer looks like. If you can identify who that customer is, and it's not just that they're ideal for you, it's that you're ideal for them. So you have something that is really suited to what they want compared to what's in the market. And then you market to them. And the chances are the big boys are not marketing to them. So you're not really competing. You're competing for the noise, right? Just the airspace, the share of voice is hard. But your message will really resonate then with the audience that you've targeted at.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, for finding your target audience and know what your target audience are going through, then you could really spend your money wisely, because dollar wise, we can compete with the big boys. And if you're spending like they target most of the people in that industry, then you're still losing money. But if you're focusing on a certain title or maybe a certain functionality for what they're doing with your services, then you're more focused and you're more deep. Matt, I know we talked about this before the show. Seems like a lot of company will target and they will focus a lot on customer acquisition, right? To get the customer through the door to start buying from them. And once that they became a customer, they don't spend a lot of money, or they don't even notice them until maybe it's time for renewal. Maybe it's time to raise our pricing. Then we reach out to them. Like, do you see that in client that you consult with? What do you think the ratio that we should do to put on focus on retaining client and customer retention?
Do I see it? Absolutely. I think there's a natural tendency, right? Sales make the world go round. We have to generate business, especially as a growing company. And so the focus tends to be very myopic. If the buyer's journey starts with, they're aware of a problem and they're just researching it, they're not sure yet what they want to do, and then they move into evaluation, sort of looking at the different solutions that are available. Then in the middle, there's actually the closing the deal, the purchase, the selection phase. Most companies are putting a huge amount of their sales and marketing resources just in these sales-ready prospects, people that are ready to buy. And the reality is, if you haven't engaged them earlier than that, when they're doing their homework and their research, you're going to have a hard time winning their business. Then there are the piece you're talking about, which is the implementation stage. They've acquired your solution, product, or service, and they're starting to use it. And they're trying to figure out how to get the value that they thought they were going to get when they made the purchase, right? That's their expected value for your product. And you want to make sure they get that and more if you can. So content that speaks to how to use my solution, how to troubleshoot it, how other people have used it, how to get more value out of it, is just as valuable actually as the content earlier in that journey that gets them to buy in the first place. Because if they have a great experience implementing a seamless, frictionless experience implementing your solution, and they get more value than they thought they were going to get, well, for sure, they're more likely then to come back to you if they need more of the same, or if they need something else that you offer. Then there's the final stage of that journey, where as a satisfied customer, they feel good enough about you, they become a loyal customer where they want to become an advocate for you, and they start telling other people. And if you can get your customers telling other people about you, that's free marketing. It's the cheapest marketing you can buy. And that also that's the kind of content you were talking about earlier, where you check in with them regularly, you send them updates, you give them the chance to participate in user forums or product development cycles where they feel like they have some input into what you're doing, and they become super engaged and super loyal, and then they'll become advocates. They'll speak for you, when you ask them to, even when you don't ask them to. And that's fantastic. So is there a ratio? I don't know that I can say it should be 20% here and 70% there. There just needs to be content and marketing for the whole journey, and at least something all the way along, so that a prospect can go from awareness all the way through to loyalty, following the content trail that you're laying for them.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think in my experience, you're one of the best company that have done for retention at HubSpot. I use HubSpot myself. I use the lowest tier pay option, right? So I'm paying customer, but
Yep.
they're always trying to pitch me for the professional enterprise option. And what they do, instead of just giving me codes and discount, is they would take me link to their HubSpot university. So they actually teach me how to use it. But until you unlock your professional version, that's the option that you don't have, but it's really good if you use it. And then they also have seminar, they have webinar, they have people checking in. So they are checking in what I do. And obviously they track everything that every time that I click. So they actually study me as a client. And there's tons of me out there. So now when I talk to a contact at the Chamber of Commerce, if they ask me what CRM, what they should use, I would say HubSpot. They don't pay me, I'm paying them, right? But then
Yep.
with the content strategy that using, they actually have a forum too. If I get mad or with some of the function that they have, I actually go on to the forum and vent my anger. And sometimes they watch it too, then they fix it. So that's a bigger company, right? But as a smaller company, you could maybe utilize some of it. YouTube is a great resource, right? When you want to learn how to use a camera, how do you drive a car, like how to set up your Tesla, for example, then people go to YouTube. Like they don't even pay those people to put those content. People actually want to do that. So if you think outside the box like that, you don't actually need a lot of money, but it just have to connect with the community, and the community itself will actually do it on behalf of you.
Yeah. First of all, HubSpot is a great example of B2B marketing. I think they have been for a long time. They've been held up as one of the best. They've spent a lot of money on it, right? And full disclosure, strategic piece is a HubSpot partner. So we're like you. We love HubSpot. We use it. We recommend it. We've installed it for people. So yes, go HubSpot. And they won't pay me for saying that either. I think, and you hit on a number of things. Video, very important, right? Google is the biggest search engine. The second biggest search engine is YouTube, and it's catching up. I mean, they're both owned by Google, but the video search is catching up with typing things in the browser bar, text search quite quickly. And a lot of people now, especially younger buyers, are going to go for the video first. Is there a video I can watch to learn about this rather than reading through pages of text? So that is definitely a place to play, and it doesn't cost you much to do that. Then you mentioned user-generated content, which is the videos that are put up by someone who's used your product, but you didn't ask them to do it. You can, right? You could ask for them to leave a review. You could ask them to make a video, but really authentic user-generated content where somebody unboxes your product or talks about your solution or the problem they have with it and how you fixed it for them, all good stuff. And that's extremely powerful. Why? Because as human beings, we look at other human beings to see what we should do. If we're not certain, we look at the group, we look at the community and say, what's everybody else doing? Is anybody else out there tackling the problem I'm tackling? As a default option, I'll do what they're doing. And so if we see user-generated content that talks about a product we're considering, and it does it in an authentic way, and we believe what they're saying, we're much more likely to follow that option than something that we know less about. So anything we can do that encourages our buyers to produce that sort of content is, and that's maybe a second stage. It's, for a smaller growing company, you don't have a big enough user base, you don't have the resources to necessarily support it. And I think communities take time to build. There are 3 myths about content marketing. It's cheap, it's quick, and it's easy. And unfortunately, the truth is the opposite. You do have to spend a certain amount of money to make it happen. It will take time. Trust takes time to build. The community takes time to build. And it's not easy. You have to consciously, spend effort and invest effort in doing it right if you want to distinguish yourself from the noise that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, there's a lot of good point there. And, thinking about, while we're talking with, businesses that I follow and like, a lot of the user generated content, for example, going to a B2C space, what I like for when I go to REI when buying outdoor equipment is all the employees, they actually do the talk, right? They're hikers,
Yep.
they're runners, they actually use those products with them telling you as their experience, not trying to sell you that product itself, that you end up buying a lot more stuff out the door. So if you can train your support team or the sales representative, why don't you check out this case study or how others have used our product and services to solve the pain point that you might have. And I think case study is really good, and testimonial from actual paying client are actually tremendous as well, because they help them fix this problem, maybe they can help me fix my problem.
Yep, absolutely. I think, almost any company, if you ask them what is the thing they wish they had more of in their marketing, it would be case histories, case studies, because, once you have a few good case studies illustrating the different, use cases for your solution, it really helps. But they are difficult to get. First of all, you have to have the success case, then you have to have the customer that's willing to share it and allow you to publish it. Occasionally people will try to fake them, right, and to sort of make up a generic story that sounds like a customer. Got to be careful with that. Human beings have a good bullshit detector in their head. They know made up content when they see it. So, but yes, I mean, case histories, testimonials are valuable for the same reason we just talked about, that we look for peer approval. We look for validation from people that we trust when we're choosing between solutions that we don't trust as much. We're just not familiar enough with them.
Especially if your competitor is using it, then you know that you compete with them. Okay, that must be somewhat validated because my competitor is using it. So it takes a while, like you said, Matt, but to build up the credentials, right, to build up the client list. But if you're smart, if you actually looked at why, I think an important question too to ask a customer who actually pay you to do that is you follow up with them, with all the options that you have. Why did you choose us?
Yep.
And then you shut up. You don't talk anything and let them talk, right? Even if they say something that you might not want to hear, you don't comment back. Like, you just write down the notes, and those are the points. If you think that talking to maybe 5 to 10 clients, they all say the same thing, that's what you're sticking with.
I agree. Yeah, and there's your customer facing team, whoever those, sales people, customer support people, but also other members of your team that are interacting with customers, they're hearing that feedback, but are they listening to it is a different question. And, there's a temptation to only listen to the good bits, as you said, and not so much maybe the feedback we'd rather not hear. But the more transparent you can be, the more authentic, your communication to the community is, the faster you will earn their trust and the faster you'll win their business. And I don't think there's any harm in saying we're a small player. We've only been in business for 2 years. We don't have the long track records that some of the companies do, but we're here. We'll stand by our solution. We'll make it right. We will do what it takes to support your business, even though we don't yet have that arsenal of case histories and so on to demonstrate it. And then as you grow, as you become bigger, and you can start to add in more and more of that proof, obviously you climb the ladder of superior marketing.
Mm-hmm. Well, having you on to talk about content marketing, I have to ask you this question, right? It's been just, people just talk about, and is content marketing still here? It's the role of ChatGPT or other AI, if you use other platform, right, for content marketing. Should we just say, write me a blog for blah 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 and be done with? Would that be a good approach, or how do you approach it as a business yourself?
Well, first of all, congratulations. We made it almost half an hour without using the AI word in the conversation, but for good reason, right? Everybody's talking about it because it has, sprung onto all of our screens. It's suddenly become very usable. And indeed, almost anybody now could say, as you just said, get the prompt right, but write me a blog post about content marketing that would be suitable for this audience. And you will get, however many words you want, 1,000 words, 1,200 words. The keys here are authenticity and originality. And so when I go online and I read an article about a topic that I'm interested in, the first thing I'm, really looking for is, do I believe this? Does this sound like someone who knows what they're talking about? And the second thing, whether it's subconscious or conscious, is there something original? Am I taking something away from this that I haven't read somewhere else? ChatGPT and the other large learning models, they're just regurgitating information that they find elsewhere on the internet. Now, they're extremely good at that. They're very good at finding relevant information and extremely good at presenting it in a nicely written way. So in that sense, they can produce very good content. The problem is it doesn't have any original ideas from your business in it. And so it's not speaking as you, it's just some internet thing. So 50 different companies could come up with an identical blog post. I think the use for ChatGPT and tools like it, I'm not particularly a fan of one or the other, I use several of them, is use it to do research, to sort of provide the background information that you need for a nice blog post, to gather, what information is out there. But then think about what am I trying to convey? What's my opinion on this? Where do I think this piece of the industry is going? What do I think is a novel way of thinking about it? What value can I add based on my experience? And then rewrite the whole thing, or write the whole thing in your voice or your company's voice. And, there's lots of tools coming out now to tell which blogs have been written by AI. And so fairly soon, the search engines are going to start deprioritizing stuff that is clearly just what you said, write the prompt in ChatGPT, tidy it up a bit and publish it. People aren't really interested in that. So I think authentic content and content that has an original point of view that's clearly presented, that's what's going to get you attention and stand out from the crowd. So 50 people write a generic blog post, but I write one that has some clear value that I've added to it. I should rise above most of those. And if I do that consistently, people will see that I have an authentic point of view. They'll understand my point of view, how it connects between the different pieces that I write. And then that should come across as someone who is trusted, right? Not necessarily a thought leader. I think thought leadership's a little bit different, but at least having an original point of view and expressing it in the material. So it's an enabling tool. Will I be put out of business by AI? No, but I could be put out of business by someone who uses AI more smartly than I do. And so I think I tell anybody that's doing content marketing, you better start experimenting with these tools and figuring out how to use them to your advantage. Because if you don't, somebody else is, and they're going to overtake you. It'd be like saying in the early 2000s, I'm not going to use the internet. I'm going to carry on, going to the library and looking everything up in books. It wouldn't have lasted very long before you have to go and use the internet. Otherwise, you're just left behind. And I think we face the same thing now with AI.
Yeah, just want to give everyone an example. It's totally irrelevant, but it kind of show you what ChatGPT can do and what you as a person should do for yourself. About 6 months ago, I wanted to increase my bench press, right? I like working out, right? So I actually asked GPT, how can I improve my bench press? And then it spit out a lot of routine. It's pulling out from the online research, right? Online blog posts.
Yeah.
And some of them are garbage. Some of them are really generic. You should eat more, work out, 3 days a week. And then I end up still hiring a coach, right? Because a coach can see the actual input that I have and then give me something relevant, to fit it into your model map. It could help you with a lot of research, and it could pull in a lot of data for you. I like to use that to, have data, right? I would still verify it, but you sound smarter, right? Pulling data from different research or different magazines. So that is helpful, but you don't want, it sounds like a robot still. But if you're writing with authentic content, like you say, maybe I'm trying this software, maybe I'm trying this product. This is actually me using that product. Then you can still write with ChatGPT or AI because they're not out there, doing that testing for you. They're not out there, trying that thing for you. So I think it's a good tool that you can use it, especially for me. I could write my thoughts in there and it clean up my grammatical mistakes. That's perfect.
That's absolutely a good use case. Yeah, there's no excuse now for having a blog post out there with typos and poor grammar in it. I mean, that shouldn't have been the case 5 years ago, but certainly now. Use the tools to improve the writing. Yes.
And I think as a small business owner too, it helps me a lot because when I do shows like this, and you could probably tell I like to talk a lot, but then if you have me write on a computer or on a piece of paper, I have blank stare. So what I actually use is I found a AI program called Toasty.ai, recommended a guest from the show. I can actually turn the conversation that we have had right now, turn it into blog posts, social media posts, and marry it with my content marketing. And sometimes when I am guests on other podcasts too, I would deliberately, obviously they will ask me promotional product, and I'll say promotional product key point that I know that are relevant. Those are soundbite, and I'll actually use that coming back to my own content marketing for all my posts, maybe some of the blog posts that I'm writing, maybe some of the industry that I want to be focusing on. So I use that and then ask the AI to come up with blog or content coming from my mouth. So I think I found a way to use it that works for me.
Yeah, excellent. Sounds great. And I agree with the way you're using it. I like to think of it I mean, if we had hired a research assistant 10 years ago, 15 years ago, however far back it would have been a human. Let's imagine we've hired a relatively inexperienced person to be our research assistant, and we give them a list of questions and say, go away and research these questions and bring back what you find. We should treat AI the same way. We would not have taken that material and just blindly published it. We would have said, this is a research assistant. They don't have the expertise I have. Let me look through what they've found, throw away the things that are irrelevant, correct some things that I think are different. We can do the same thing with AI, and yes, a lot of the rules-based tools. And I think there's a difference between the large language models, I should say, that are going out and finding relevant information for you. That's one set of AI tools. Then there are as you mentioned, the grammar checkers, the soundbite extractors, the translators, all of the technical tools that are using AI to get to a better answer. Those are phenomenal. I mean, the editing tools that are available now, video, photo, words, whatever it is, fantastic. So we can each produce some really high quality content from the material that we have. You gained the advantage of originality by having the conversation first. That's where those original thoughts and sound bites happened. And then that went through into the material that you published. And so you had your unique opinion was embedded in it already.
Yeah, I think one function I've been using, and you have to be a brave soul to do that. Ask them to compare your company to your competitor, see what comes up, and then
Yeah.
maybe you are saying, your marketing piece compared to other company. So let's see what comes up. Sometimes it's scary, So if you're brave, go check it out.
I think there's always, and I agree with that. One caveat to that is that most of the large learning models, of course, have to be trained. So they're a few months out of date. And so you can't guarantee that when it says your competitors have not written anything about promotional goods, they may have written something in the last 6 months and the model just wouldn't know about it. So you have to be a little bit cautious with that. I do think a really valuable type of research is what has already been written about the topic that I'm thinking of. So I'm thinking about promotional goods. What's been written about promotional goods? And then I can look at that and say, well, do I need to write another piece about that? Is a reader going to care? Have they already got the information that they need? Or do I have a different opinion that needs to be written, right? It's counter narrative. All these other pieces say A and I think B, so I'm going to write about B. And yes, looking at what's already out there is an important piece of research before you start putting together content.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. So I wanted to ask you a kind of big question. Let's assume that, it's a small business in the B2B space and enjoying our conversation, right, for creating content. So where would you suggest them to start, to create authentic content for the company? Are there frameworks that you would suggest everyone can, try to research on their own?
Yeah, I always tell clients you need to anchor all of your content. Authenticity runs through everything, right? If you aren't putting together content that you would be happy to stand up on stage or write in a newspaper and have your grandmother read it, whatever test you like to say, then don't bother. Fake content does a lot more harm than good. How do you create authentic content? Well, the first is, we've already talked about it, is what's my opinion? What is my company's position on this that I want to share? But I would go back further and say, why are we in business? What is the purpose of our business? Who do we help? How do we help them? That's our mission statement. Where are we trying to go? What are we trying to create for the industry? What's going to happen here? What change are we trying to lead by producing the products and solutions that we do? That's kind of our vision. So purpose, mission, vision, those things kind of underpin your content. And you should be able to tie your message back to that. This is what we believe as a company, and this is why we think you should want to do business with us, is almost as important as, and this is our product, and here's its features, and here's its benefits. People want to do business with companies that they think have the right, they care about the right things. Going back to the conversation we had a few minutes ago, if we don't think a particular vendor cares about us, they just want our money, we're much more likely to go do business with a company that we think does care about us, even if it costs us a little bit more. Price usually is not the determining factor, right? So authentic content is really about that. It's about who are we? Why are we in business? What do we stand for? Why are we building these products and services? And then, filter that in between the the specs, the features and benefits of whatever product or solution we're providing.
Okay, great. Matt, I think it gets to the point that, listener, will have individual questions. So if they do want to reach out, what would be a best way to get in touch with you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. So you can find me, Matt Bell, on LinkedIn. Should be, and MessageUp is the company. They're both on there. Please follow those pages. If you want to reach me personally, matt@messageup.com. It's always dangerous giving your email out, but I trust your readership will use it judiciously and not spam me too much. I have a pretty good filter on there. And then, yeah, you've put a link up on the screen there. So the website is messageup.com. There is a link in the nav. It's there. The book, it's actually 2 books. I need to update that link, but it's been out there long enough now that it's kind of hard to go change links. A lot of people already have it. That will take you to the section where you can access the books. They're available from the publisher, BookBaby. And they're also available from Amazon. If you go to the BookBaby link, which is the main big one on the page there are discount codes that viewers can use. Mission VIP 33 and Magic VIP 33 are 2 discount codes you can use. The reason they're called that is the first book is Content Marketing Mission Critical. That's for CEOs and business leaders who are trying to create a content marketing strategy. That's the where do we get started question is really answered in that book. Then the second one is Content Marketing Making the Magic Happen. And that's for the marketing leaders and marketing teams who actually then have to operationalize that strategy and deliver it. And that's more about the nuts and bolts of how to do content marketing once the strategy has been set. So the one's blue, one's green, and they work in tandem. So actually, if the leadership reads the blue one and marketing team reads the green one, they can have a coherent conversation around a content marketing framework.
Thank you so much, Matt. I will definitely put the link and the code on the show notes, and then learn a lot from you today. And content marketing is important, and I'm learning a lot from doing these episodes.
I'm glad. We should always be continuously learning. That's what we're here to do.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
My pleasure, Swai. Thank you for having me. Look forward to seeing the episode when it goes live. We'll make sure all those links are in the show notes.
Yeah.